The story begins in a place full of destruction caused by an evil invading this world. Most of the heroes fighting the evil god are already lifeless. Only our main protagonist, Gray Shepherd, remains alive together with his sister, Fiona Shepherd. Unfortunately, Gray is already wounded and he is only supported by his sister for him to be able to stand. He was mad knowing that his comrades were dead while Fiona told him to pull himself together. He stares at the evil god with anger, and the evil god then says that it was such a pleasure to see the weaklings crawling for their lives. This evil god is faceless and bigger than humans. Gray casts a silence skill and aimed it at the evil god. It creates a strong blow of flame, but then it doesn't even harm the evil god. The evil god points his finger on the ground, ordering Gray and Fiona to kneel and beg for mercy. He then casts a strong power and Gray knows that he cannot stop it any longer. He and his sister Fiona are unfortunately affected by the attack that the evil god casts. Gray unintentionally kneels while Fiona lies on the ground and she feels like she almost loses consciousness. At this point, Gray admitted to himself that no matter how much power he has, it is still unattainable, knowing that defeating an evil god as a human is simply impossible. He forced himself to stand, telling Fiona to run away while he would buy some time. Fiona grabbed his sword and told her brother that running away couldn't solve anything. A golden light emerged and almost covered her. She lifted up her sword and said that the world would end if they didn't defeat the evil god now. She also believes that they can seal the evil god if they use the remaining powers of the divine sword even though they cannot slay it. Fiona then charges at the evil god while Gray asks her to stop, knowing that using the remaining power of the divine sword would exchange her soul will. "I'm sorry, brother. You will end up alone. However, I want to protect your world," Fiona answered and attacked the evil god, which was witnessed by Gray. Gray screamed Fiona's name and in front of him was a strong explosion caused by Fiona's divine sword's power. Gray flew away and the evil god screamed in agony. Fiona was able to stab him. The evil god's blood splattered around and its body shattered to pieces. A silhouette appeared. Fiona closed her eyes and bid goodbye to the world. She disappeared together with the evil god, leaving Gray in sorrow. He was still kneeling on the ground. He was puzzled after witnessing how his sister sacrificed her life just to save humanity. He was hurt and screamed Fiona's name once more. A week passed, and Gray was acknowledged by the church as they believed that it was he who saved the world. He was enthroned as the 66th Emperor of the Holy Empire Nurapast. The crowd then screamed, saying that they should respect Gray Shepherd. With that, he ascended to the Emperor's seat as the sole survivor among all the heroes, and he gained wealth and glory from all corners of the world. People claimed to worship him, expecting that he was a supreme wise man who had mastered the secrets of magic. In other words, he was addressed as the sole survivor from the continental counties who was destined to be the emperor for all. However, all of these are just meaningless for him, knowing that it was his sister and his comrades who wished to save the world, and his real intention is just to protect his sister and comrades' smiles. But in the end, he wasn't able to save any of them, which only made him sorrowful. This throne he is sitting on is built on everyone's corpses. All his comrades are gone. They've lost half of the world, and his only sister has died as well. The evil god that his irreplaceable sister sealed away at the expense of her life will be revived in 1,000 years. That's the real outcome, and for Gray, this is by no means his win. Starting that day, he tried to search for a way to bring back his sister's life. Fortunately, he has gained a lot of knowledge about magic during his journey. After analyzing the last battle against the evil god, he understands something about him. He doesn't care if it's forbidden magic or necromancy anymore, as long as he can bring Fiona back to life. He decided to use the power of the evil god by stabbing his own eyes. After that, he searched the evil god's eyes with just one of his original eyes. He then wore it the moment he found it, and with this, he believes he can bring back his sister's life. Several years passed. The Empire's Prime Minister entered Gray's room without Gray's permission, asking him to stop what he was doing. The Prime Minister then informed him that negative rumors were spreading about him lately. One of these rumors is that Gray Shepherd, the Emperor of this holy empire, is a mage of the evil eye. Gray stares at him and reminds him that he has always said not to come in without permission. At this time, Gray looks so old and wasted. He has long hair and a beard. "Your Highness, what is that exactly?" the Prime Minister asked upon seeing a monster on the ground in front of Gray. This monster was unknown. It was squishing in the ground. A purple color with 2 eyes and a small mouth. The Prime Minister moaned in agony the moment this monster attacked him. It eats him alive, but Gray doesn't do anything. He was just standing still doing nothing. After the monster ate the Prime Minister, it suddenly melted, which means a failure. Gray has been testing numerous forbidden magics, and even after obtaining the Eye of Evil, his experiment still ends up in failure. He cannot even find a fragment of Fiona's soul. He was so upset with himself, questioning what he was doing right now and what his purpose was. He was hopeless, not until he heard an unknown voice asking him if he really wanted to get Fiona back. He was startled by the voice he heard. He looked up above, but then he never saw anyone. It was just a dark portal. He asked who it was, but he didn't get any answer. This unknown creature asked him if he still wanted to save the most precious person in his life, even if he had to throw away his glory or even lose his life. If you're willing to sacrifice everything, I will show you the way, he added. Because of the dark portal, Gray was sure that it was an evil magic or perhaps another evil being. Since he wanted to bring back his sister's life, he accepted the offer. He screamed that he didn't need anything, and the only wish he had was the happiness of the ones he loved. The portal is spinning, seems like a whirlpool above Gray. On that day, Emperor Gray had disappeared. The last thing that the people saw was the burning palace, and in the midst of the fire, the emperor was laughing. His laugh was like a demon, and he didn't feel any pain despite that he was burning in the hellfire. After that incident, Gray Shepherd transmitted in a peaceful place. He was leaning in a huge tree under the sun. He woke up from a deep sleep and he instantly saw the tree and its fruits. He smelled a nostalgic smell and he remembered that this tree was called the Tree of the Witch. If he recalls correctly, someone would be cursed if they were to cut down this tree. And because of the rumors, villagers won't dare to get close to it. So now, he wondered why he suddenly appeared here. In addition, he believes that he should be dead in the hellfire. He looked at his surroundings and the place was so familiar to him. He knew that the place where he was is called Carpedim, his hometown. He was shocked upon seeing it and he thought that he was just dreaming. He walked to the village and saw the residents living a peaceful life. He was so confused upon seeing that the place still looked the same, like nothing happened. This place should have been indulging in darkness because of the invasion of demons. He then flinched as he concluded that he really actually regressed back into the past. But then, a part of him was hesitant to believe it since he specialized in magic and he knew that no magic can rewind time. Now, it was indeed a miracle for him that he regressed back into the past. A little girl was standing behind him, calling him brother. Gray was nervous, thinking that it was his sister Fiona. He slowly turned his head around and he confirmed that the girl who called his name was really his sister, Fiona. Fiona was carrying lots of bread. She was smiling widely while saying that she received so many bread from the bakery. Fiona spoke more words, but Gray was not listening to her at all. He was still surprised. He immediately ran to his sister while his sister was telling him that they didn't need to worry about their breakfast for tomorrow since they now had lots of free bread. Gray hugged Fiona so tight since she missed her so bad, while Fiona was confused about why Gray acted differently. He was crying in happiness and Fiona then asked him what was wrong. She even thought that Gray was bullied again, but Gray answered no. He recalled the time when they fought the evil god while telling his sister that he just missed her, and he asked her a favor to stay hugging each other for a while. After a few minutes, they both then decided to go home. Fiona was teasing Gray for hugging her while crying just because she was away from him a bit. She said that Gray is like a kid and very weird all of a sudden. At this time, Gray confirmed that he has really regressed back into the past. His little sister, who was supposed to be dead, the only family member he has, is walking right beside him while laughing. Now that he and his sister reunited, he doesn't need anything as long as he can stay with Fiona just like this. While walking, he suddenly heard a weird noise causing him to feel dizzy. He still has the evil eye and it suddenly hurts. He kneeled on the ground and covered his eye with his right hand. The pain was severe. He felt like it was burning. Fiona was worried for him and asked him if he was fine. Despite that he's in agony, he lied that he was fine and reasoned out that he only feels like there's something going on inside his eye. He was annoyed thinking about why this happened at this time that he was reuniting with his sister. The one who helped Gray then said that he had put a curse on Gray's evil eye. Gray grits his teeth out of anger. This unknown voice then added that this curse on Gray's evil eye would lead Gray to his doom. And as the event that may result in Fiona's death approaches and the probability of her dying grows, with this burning pain in Gray's evil eye, he shall be tormented and condemned. It's a curse that would prevent him from having such naive thoughts just like now. Don't make me laugh. This is a curse, Gray asked, and the unknown voice thought that Gray was not satisfied at all. But then, Gray told him that he was wrong since it was actually good for him. If this pain could warn him about the approaching danger of his sister, then he believes it is not a curse but a blessing. He was thankful for this curse, knowing that it could help him know immediately if his sister was in danger. I see. If that's the case, show me your struggle, the unknown voice said. The pain then disappeared along with the presence of that unknown creature. He was wondering if the presence was really gone, but he knew he could not get any answer at all. He felt creepy. He doesn't know who or what the hell those creatures are, but it's fine for him. He was grateful to that creature since he already decided what to do. This time, he was sure that he could rewrite history from despair and prevent Fiona's death. He was eager to fulfill the perfect salvation without leaving any regret. This is his ultimate goal for this life this time. In order to achieve that, he planned to prevent the 12 tragedies that would happen as a result of the demon's invasion. Additionally, he needs to save 7 people who are his comrades. They have to prepare themselves for the final battle against the evil god. If they manage to do that, he believes they would prevent the death of half the population and Fiona's tragedy. He should be able to achieve the perfect ending with the current him. While he was thinking about what to do, Fiona called him many times. He got back to his senses and asked his sister what was wrong. Fiona then said that she was just calling him for a while, but he didn't hear her at all. She then informed Gray that she promised to help bring water for the breads she had received, so she wanted Gray to take the breads back to their home first. She handed the bread to Gray and it was so heavy, causing him to be outbalanced. Fiona then walked away and said, "I will be back soon, wait for me at home." Gray then headed back home, wondering why the bread was so heavy. He thought that there might be rocks inside the bread which caused it to be heavy, and since seeing that Fiona carried it effortlessly, he concludes that his little sister had already been this strong since around this time, or perhaps he was just too weak to carry it. While walking, he wasn't aware that there were people watching him from behind. These people call his name. He was shocked upon hearing the voices. The bald man in the middle then asked him if he was leaving his little sister alone and just walking back home by himself. "Without your sister, you're just nothing," he added. He also wondered why Gray had a lot of bread despite that he was jobless. The little guy with dark hair then said that Gray might be begging for it. He also stated that it would be nice for Gray to receive the kindness of strangers to feed himself just by not having parents. Since Gray didn't respond or either turned around, they expected that Gray was already irritated. The bald man was about to give him a beating, but when he pulled Gray's shoulder, Gray's eyes were shining and he managed to strongly punch the bald man, causing him to fly away. The bald man's companion was speechless since they never expected that Gray had hidden ability. Gray grabbed the bald man's head and pushed him to the ground, which made the ground shattered to pieces. The bald man was in severe pain. He was unable to move after Gray gave him the beating he deserved. His 2 companions didn't dare to help him at all. Gray smiled and proclaimed that he now remembered that these 3 thugs were from his hometime before he had started his journey. He also cannot forget that these 3 have been bullying him for being weak and without parents. And in the past, Fiona would always come and save him every time he was bullied. The 3 were confused about Gray's statement. Gray added that he is the person who needs Fiona's protection. The curl guy was annoyed at Gray for spitting nonsense. He was about to punch Gray, but Gray's evil eye suddenly showed up again. In an instant, he blocks the curl man's fist and squeezes it. The curl guy was in pain and the remaining bully started to be afraid of Gray. The curl guy was knocked down by Gray and Gray was staring at the last bully. The boy was scared of it. He begged Gray not to hurt him. He even admitted that it was their fault. He promised Gray that they wouldn't bully him anymore from now on. But still, Gray walked toward the boy since he didn't want to show any mercy. Gray then squeezed the boy's face, and even if how the boy pushed Gray away, it was impossible due to the current strength of Gray. Gray was flaming. He tells the boy that his sister Fiona protected him in his previous life, and in order to prevent her death, he won't need any more protection from Fiona at all and instead show her that he's strong enough to defend himself. He also told the boy not to worry since he didn't have any intention to leave any trace to be seen once he burned these bullies or froze them with magic. The boy was crying in pain while Gray hurt him with some physical enhancement. After punishing the 3 guys, he then sighed while staring at his magic power, proclaiming that he could draw any magic circle just by using his vision, and he knew that this was the power of an evil god. He noticed that this power was indeed convenient, but he cannot deny the fact that he gets tired so fast after using it. At this time, Fiona suddenly went back to him. His sister then asked him what just happened, and he turned his head around with a smile on his face and answered that he had taken care of these 3 bullies since they had started a fight with him. Fiona was shocked upon hearing it. Gray suddenly laughed in happiness and confidently told his sister that she didn't need to worry at all since he could now already handle troublesome things on his own. Unfortunately, he suddenly collapsed. In the end, his sister is still worried for him and immediately runs to help him. At this time, he doesn't know what's going on since he never expected to lose consciousness. After several hours, he woke up in a bed. He was looking around, wondering where he was since the place didn't feel like the bed of the royal chamber. He then concludes that he is now in their house in his hometown, so he is sure that he really back into the past and that everything wasn't a dream. He then heard his sister's voice calling him. Fiona was just sitting beside him and she was glad to see Gray finally woke up. Gray then asked if he passed out and Fiona informed him that he suddenly collapsed and wouldn't open his eyes the whole day. At that time, she doesn't know what to do, and even the granny healer in their village doesn't know what caused it. The chief, a man who adopted them, was also with them. He told Gray that Fiona was the one who took care of him the whole day, and he asked Gray not to make his little sister worry too much again. Gray gets up and apologizes to the chief and his sister for worrying them. Unfortunately, he suddenly felt severe pain again. He feels that his entire body is screaming in agony. He was sweating heavily, and Fiona panicked and immediately lay him back again. Fiona told him not to force himself, and she then wrapped Gray with a blanket, then told him that she would go and prepare a meal. She also scares him that she will tie him down if he doesn't properly take a rest on the bed. Gray then answered that he understood. Fiona cooked some porridge while Gray and the chief were talking. Gray asked the chief about what year is it now, and according to the chief, it was already in Agnes' calendar, year 5637, the month of Sparrow. He then asked Gray if he hit his head when he passed out, as he thought that Gray was suffering an Alzheimer's. Gray then answered that he was fine. Gray confirmed that this is still the world he used to know in the past, and the current time is the time when Heroes Salvation didn't exist yet. Carperdom is the village where his sister and he used to live together way before they started Heroes of Salvation. Even for orphans like them, they didn't know how they ended up living in this village. Gray only remembers that the chief himself found and picked them up from the forest close to the village where they were abandoned. The chief, who was an ex-instructor of the Imperial Army, not only gave them a place to live but also taught them swordsmanship and magic for their future. The chief was just like a parent to Fiona and Gray. Since then, time passed, and Heroes of Salvation were formed. Then 5 years later, that was the time when they fought the evil god and unfortunately lost Fiona's life. Since Gray has been given a chance, he wants to get stronger in order to protect Fiona. He still has the knowledge and evil eye from his previous life, but against the evil god, he knows it is still enough. Could you train me even further, chief? To the point where I can defeat the evil god? Gray asked. His body was shaking in pain since he forced himself to get up. The chief then asked him if he was planning on becoming a hero. Gray was holding his chest due to the pain. He told the chief that he didn't have any other choice in order to protect Fiona and prevent the upcoming tragedies. The chief was confused about what was going on to him. He asked Gray about what he meant by tragedies. Gray chooses to be silent. The chief scratched his hair and agreed to train Gray and said, "Since you've already resolved yourself like this, I won't hold you back." After Fiona prepared their meal, she saw Gray wearing another cloth. She then asked him what he was doing, and Gray informed her that he asked the chief to give him more training. As expected, Fiona was mad at him for being so reckless despite that he already collapsed. She then told her to go back and rest, but Gray disagreed and just apologized to Fiona. He told his sister that he didn't have much time left, so he must get stronger. Fiona was confused. She asked Gray what he meant to say, but Gray went outside without clearing Fiona's confusion. The chief was outside the house and Fiona followed them. The chief was holding a sword. He proclaimed that Gray was currently not in top condition, so they should only have a light exercise for the day. But then Gray refused. He activated his flame and asked the chief not to hold back. Upon seeing a different aura and a flame in Gray's hand, the chief was shocked and thought that everything he saw was just his imagination. For a moment, he felt an enormous fighting spirit from Gray. Esprimo Guada, Gray uttered while casting a magic circle. He then attacked it to the chief, and the chief was so clueless about what it was used for. A strong explosion then happened behind him, but he managed to avoid it. He then charged at Gray and swung his sword. Gray dodges and casts another magic circle. He attacked the chief with it and it created a golden flame. It creased a strong blow. The chief was wondering what it was, and he concluded that it was a bad omen. He was using his sword to defend himself. He then jumped toward Gray while thinking that Gray was always a boy with a strong affinity for magic. A kind-hearted man who is always hesitant to attack someone. He then struck the ground near Gray, causing Gray to deactivate the magic and fell on the ground. The chief then recalls that Gray earlier didn't have any hesitation in attacking him at all. He also noticed that Gray's eyes were different. It was an eye of carnage that had swallowed thousands of enemies' lives. Gray kneeled on the ground. Fiona was worried for him. He coughed and vomited blood, and Fiona then asked him what was really going on to him for suffering in pain again and again. According to the chief, the balance between Gray's physical body and mana is distorted. He then tells Gray that he has to build up his basic strength first if he is really planning on destroying the evil god. He asked Fiona to take care of Gray while he made a training menu for Gray. The menu he was planning to make is something that even the Imperial Army will think it's a harsh menu. And so, Gray's days of training together with Fiona have started. To be trained by the person he wanted to protect seems like an odd situation. It's actually not bad. Gray has only a bit of time left to be together with Fiona. His body is slowly getting stronger. He can now use simple magic spells without passing out. It's still hard to maintain the high-tier magic spells, but at least he can now fight properly. More days passed. After their training, Fiona stretched her arms and said that she was having fun with their training. She mentioned that Gray's body was now well developed compared to before and he's now not exhausted anymore. Gray then said that it was because of her who was always with him. He gave thanks to Fiona and Fiona then said that she was happy and was having fun with him. She was also glad now since she had always done her basic training alone. But now she's always with Gray so she isn't alone anymore. That is why, brother, from now on, let's practice together, okay? She stated with a smile on her face. And Gray agreed with her. After a few minutes of walking, they arrived at a crowded, noisy area in the village. Fiona was curious about what was going on and Gray also tried to check it. But then, he flinched the moment he saw something dangerous. He then grabbed his sister's hand, telling her that they should head to the other side since in front of them was currently crowded. It was because of a man who had arrived at their village and he recalled that the tragedies started after that man came. He was panicking while pulling his sister's hand. He was sweating thinking that Fiona would be on the path to death if she were chosen, which is why he didn't want Fiona to meet with this man. Their world is detained to be destroyed. Evil God is a being that is awakened once every 1,000 years. Humans were being slaughtered by demons which were under the control of the evil God, bringing a great disaster for humanity. At the time when the evil God was resurrected, humanity prepared themselves for battle. A large number of heroes were set on a journey to bring salvation back to humanity. The wielder of the Holy Sword, whose existence is the key to sealing off the evil God, becomes the heart of the hero party. Those who hold the Holy Sword are called the Brave Warrior. The priests of the Church of Salvation were appointed as ambassadors to seek the hero candidates among the people. In the previous life of Gray, Fiona, who was righteous, was picked as a hero candidate and chosen as the Brave Warrior. Gray needs to prevent Fiona from becoming a hero in order to avoid the upcoming tragedy. The next day, Fiona and Gray had their breakfast and Fiona was confused since Gray asked her to go to the town of Nyrn for an errand. She was hesitant knowing that it would take up to 4 days for a round trip. Gray then told her that he was asked by the blacksmith to get some tools so was hoping that Fiona could help her. He knows that the priest will hold the hero selection starting today for 3 days. And during that time, he just needed to keep Fiona away from the village. Then you have to come with me. Even if we were to be attacked by a magical beast during our trip, I will beat it up for you, Fiona said while showing off her muscle. Gray apologizes to her and reasons out that he has to stay and help out the chief. Fiona suddenly moved closer to Gray's face and asked him what was wrong. She feels that there is something Gray is hiding since she noticed that Gray seems to be feeling sad and dejected lately. If you have anything unpleasant, please tell me, okay, Fiona said. Gray mumbled saying that it was impossible to tell her sister about what was on his mind. He then just told her that he was just a bit exhausted. He promised his sister that he won't be reckless and he also told her not to worry about him and just go. Fiona followed what Gray asked for but she was still wondering if her brother was really fine. Gray waved goodbye at her while thinking that Fiona was the only person he wouldn't tell the truth to. Meanwhile, everyone was gathered in front of the priest. The priest introduced himself as an ambassador sent by the Salvation Authority. He ordered those people who wished to be heroes and save their people to come forward. He informed them that he would determine whether they qualified or not with a mock battle as a test. The crowd was gossiping since they never expected an ambassador to come to the countryside all of a sudden. Some of them also wondered if being a hero would get money as a payment. There are also residents who are aware that being heroes have to fight against demons and magical beasts. The priest suddenly struck the ground with the weapon he was holding. He then angrily said that he would deem this village a place where heretics worship the evil god if there was not a single volunteer who came forward. He also proclaimed that the Holy Army from the Church of Salvation would definitely burn down a village filled with heretics. One of the bullies of Gray before had stepped forward and said that he was interested. He told the priest that he should get all of the money and women in the world as long as he defeats him. The people behind were murmuring saying that this bald man was the second son of a carpenter, and they believed that it would be easy for this guy to defeat the priest knowing that he was the one who killed a wild boar with his bare hands. This bald man asked the priest about the rules and the priest said that there are none. You probably won't understand any rules with that head of yours. You are free to choose your weapon. The winner is the one who rendered down his opponent. The priest added, I won't be able to hold myself back, so it's better for you to surrender as soon as possible. The bald man confidently replied. The priest then labeled him as a comedian for saying such words with full confidence. The bald man then tried to punch the priest but the priest dodged and hit the bald man with the metal weapon he was holding. The bald man's face cannot be drawn. He flew above while his blood splattered. He landed in front of the priest, and the priest swung his weapon and angrily told the bald man that he was taken down by only one beating. He ordered the bald man to stand and fight for the world. You have to destroy the evil god with your own power. Kill the evil god, H screamed. He then hits the bald man's back several times and asks the people who are going to fight him next. 30 minutes had passed, but all the men who challenged him were defeated by him. He was mad and disappointed. He said that this village was full of trash and he was looking for a decent one that could at least defeat him. Is there no one else left? Is there no hero with Almighty God's blessing here? He asked angrily. The people were scared and looked away from him. Since no one would volunteer, the priest points his finger at a man with a well-built body. The man begged him since he had 3 children that needed to be fed every day, so he didn't want to risk his life becoming a hero. His kids hugged him and they were also scared just like their father. But then, the priest ordered him to throw away his life in exchange for saving the world with his own hands. The priest forcibly pulled the man while the kids were begging him to have mercy. The priest hit one of the kids without hesitation while telling them not to dare to try stopping salvation. The pitiful young boy cried in pain while his father was still pulled by the priest to go into the center and have a match. The priest allowed him to use a sword, but he was still afraid and still begging since he never fought with another person even before. The priest charged at him, ordering him to learn the way of violence. He swung his weapon and attacked the man. He attacked the man several times, but the man endured the pain and never fought back. The man sat down on the ground, covered his head with his hands, and he was shaking in fear and pain. The priest swung his weapon, telling the man that he would be killed if he didn't fight. At this moment, Gray interfered by blocking the priest's weapon using his magic circle. The priest was trembling while trying to push down his weapon, but then he could not do it. Gray then told him that he would take the test as long as the priest should be satisfied after one of them succeeded. In his previous life, the one who stopped the ambassador was Fiona, so now, he took her role and changed history. The priest jumped away while saying that Gray had a disadvantage in close combat for having body enhancement magic. He then attacked Gray's magic while proclaiming that nothing special with Gray's ability as long as he kept a distance. An explosion then happened and the priest laughed while admitting that he had gone overboard. He thought that he defeated Gray, but Gray's body was not in front of him. He guffaws without knowing that Gray was standing behind him. Gray casts magic on the priest and the priest flies away since he was pushed by a magical flame of Gray. The priest gained a wound on his face. He was confused about how Gray was able to survive knowing that his attack was supposed to be a direct hit. He also questioned how Gray used fire magic on top of body enhancement. Gray's evil eye was activated. He casts another magic while telling the priest that he doesn't have an obligation to answer his questions. A lightning strike was aimed at the priest, so the priest tried his best to run away while wondering who this young guy was in front of him and how could an amateur from the countryside use 3 different types of elements. The priest this time used magic to attack Gray, but Gray dodged and attacked back. The priest was electrocuted and finally felt so much pain. He kneeled on the ground and despite the pain, he still dared to smile while saying that Gray had the capability of a hero who was born once every 1,000 years. The one who shall stop the destroyer of all things, the evil god. I found you, I finally found you. He screamed with satisfaction. Oh hero, come with me and embark on a journey. We shall be the ones who paint the next history with glory. He uttered while crying in happiness. Gray was not satisfied. He cast lightning magic and attacked the priest without any hesitation. The priest burned like a grilled human. Gray was staring at the priest while proclaiming that he don't need this priest at all, in the future he will forge. 4 days ago, people in the Carperdam village then celebrated the victory of Gray. They were having a banquet and they were still surprised by Gray since none of them expected that the orphan that was found in the forest would become a hero. Gray was drinking beer with some old men. There was a drunk man hanging on Gray's shoulder who was very happy about Gray's achievement. Gray then told him that he still only just passed the hero qualification and there are also other herpes from around the world. The man then said that Gray's fight with the priest was really cool. The other guy in front of them also added that Gray might be able to actually save the world. A chef who prepared all the food also joined their conversation and he proudly said that he would tell around that the savior was growing up because of the bread he made. But then, another man disagreed and claimed that Gray became strong because of the meat he sold. They were arguing while Gray just stared at them blankly. At this time, Gray's bullies before heading toward him. Gray looked at them, wondering what they wanted. They suddenly bowed down and asked for forgiveness from Gray for all the bullying they had done to him. They were full of regrets and they said they weren't aware at all that Gray was strong. Also, they don't want to be known as the ones who bullied the hero in the future. Gray remembered his comrades and he realized that the bullies he got from these 3 were nothing compared to the suffering he and his comrades went through. They were sorry happy the moment Gray accepted their apologies. They were also amazed as they really believed that Gray was just hiding his strength all this time. I have a favor to ask of you instead. Could you protect Fiona for me? Gray said. According to Gray, during his journey, he will be away from the village for some time, so he won't know what could happen during the time he's away. Since Gray is superior in the eyes of these three men, they instantly accept his favor and promise to protect Fiona with their lives. Since they didn't see Fiona, they asked Gray where the lady was and if she would attend the banquet. Gray then realizes that he never saw his sister during the celebration. He then immediately went to the lake where his sister always hid every time she felt sad. He saw the lady sitting on the ground. He then approached her, asking what she was doing in the place alone during the night. But then, Fiona suddenly stood and walked away while telling Gray not to talk to her. Gray pulled her hand and asked her why she was mad. Fiona then replied that she was not angry. It's just that there's something she couldn't understand. Gray then asked her what it was and the lady asked him why he took the hero qualification test without consulting her first and why he kept away from the village during the qualification test period. She feels like Gray is leaving her alone. Gray doesn't know what to answer, which makes Fiona believes her conclusion. I don't know what you were thinking lately, and even though we are family, you act like a stranger, Fiona added. Gray then sincerely looked at her, telling her that the only thought that he had the whole time was that he wanted her to be happy, and in order to save that, he have to save the world. He held Fiona's shoulder and asked her a favor to send him off with a smile. He also reminded Fiona that this would be their last banquet together, so they should be happy instead of fighting. He pointed the way back to the banquet and they then walked together, but there was a space between them, but Gray waited for Fiona so they could walk together. The next day, which was Gray's time to leave the Carperdon village, he was ready to go, and before leaving, he said goodbye to the person who adopted him. The chief told him that this place would always be his home no matter what anyone said about him. No matter how the journey of salvation turns out, you have to come back alive, the chief added with crossed arms. Gray then told him that there was something he needed to say. He informed the chief that 3 years from now, on the 15th day of the month of Metis, a demon army would attack this village. The villagers will be killed, and the village itself will be engulfed in darkness. Before that happens, he wants the chief to take Fiona and everyone to run away. What have you seen exactly, Gray? The chief asked, but then Gray didn't give an answer, so the chief chose to understand him and promised that he would be more careful. In order to prevent such an event, he wants Gray to also give his best as a hero. Gray then said yes and vowed to save everything. In the end, Fiona didn't come to see him off, which made him feel sad. He would like to see her face for the last time since he doesn't know whether he'll be able to come back, but he also thinks it would be better so Fiona won't be caught up in the war. He also believes that he should be able to avoid the worst possible outcome because of this. While heading his way, he suddenly heard Fiona's voice calling him. He immediately turned around and saw his little sister Fiona in a combat suit. Fiona was smiling widely at him and said that she also wanted to go on the salvation journey with him as well. Gray then told her that it was not possible since he needed the champion's qualification to embark on the salvation journey. Surprisingly, Fiona had it and she proudly said that she received it as soon as he beat the selector. Fiona then hugged Gray with excitement while saying that this would be his first time traveling around the world. Gray was shocked upon hearing it. He pushed Fiona and ordered her to come back home immediately since the journey he would take would be dangerous. Fiona then said that she was aware of it and that is also her reason why she didn't want to let Gray go alone. Gray said that he would be fine and he also proved his powers. We are a family of two, we are supposed to always support each other. Isn't that what we promised each other too? Fiona said. And Gray suddenly flinched when he recalled something in his past life. He was sure that the words Fiona just said were also the words he told the lady back then in his previous life. He was so confused, wondering why Fiona was saying the same things as he did back then. Fiona held him and said that she didn't want to remain apart from him. She started to cry as she was afraid that Gray would die. Gray was still puzzled, but he was sure that Fiona felt the same feeling he felt before. If you won't let me tag along no matter what, then I'll embark on the salvation journey on my own, Fiona said. Gray slightly smiled and sighed. He was holding Fiona's shoulder and permitted her to go with him, knowing that it would be safer for them to travel together than being alone. Fiona was so happy and extended her hand to hold Gray's hand and run together. Gray was aware that the war between the humans and the demons would escalate, so it might be safer to keep Fiona by her side instead of leaving her at the village. Up until this point, the pain caused by his evil eye just won't go away, but he keeps on enduring it. After days of traveling, They arrived at the city of Cornu. Fiona was so happy upon seeing a huge city, so she rushed inside and jumped out of excitement since it was her first time to go to a place like this. She also saw lots of tasty food and people putting on a performance. There are a lot of people in this city, so she concludes that this city is the biggest city in the world. Gray didn't cut her happiness despite that he knew this city was actually on the smaller side. But all that mattered to him was to see Fiona having fun. Even in his past life, Fiona was in high spirits, so he felt nostalgic at this time. Back then, he was worried about Fiona, so he accompanied her on the journey of salvation. Come to think of it, what even is the journey of salvation? Fiona asked while eating some street food. Gray then asked if the selector hadn't told her about it, and Fiona answered that the selector seemed too beat up and just spouted a lot of weird stuff. The ultimate goal of this journey is to defeat the evil god that revived every 1,000 years. That is why they were traveling across the world. They will get the blessing of each of the great spirits and liberate ancient weapons. It's a pilgrimage to make them stronger. Saving people from monsters during the journey is also the duty of champions. That serves as needed training to fight the evil god. Then what is this class thing? It says I'm a hero but you're a magician, right brother? Fiona asked. And according to Gray, a class is a role in a battle that the selector has deemed most fitting for them. There is also a tank and healer. The hero is the most important class, being the core of the party. After all, only the hero can wield the divine blade that can seal the evil god. But Gray doesn't want to tell it to Fiona. If Fiona obtains the divine blade, he knows that the tragedy might just repeat again. Since he knows a lot, Fiona was surprised and asked him if he perhaps wanted to be a champion for a long time. Gray then answered that he had never once wanted to be a champion. Fiona then asked him why he became one now. While they were walking away, they weren't aware that there was a man following them. They went to a blacksmith in the city to get some weapons. Fiona was amazed upon seeing many kinds of weapons. The blacksmith then asked her if she was a newbie champion, and she was surprised how the owner knew it. The blacksmith then said that he was just looking at her equipment, how she carried herself, and the expression she made. But for him, seemed like Gray was different. Fiona doesn't get it since Gray is also a newbie like her. Anyway, take care out there. A lot of newbie champion parties have gone missing around these parts lately. I don't want the weapons I worked so hard on to go to waste, the blacksmith said. Fiona and Gray then came out from the store and headed somewhere else. While walking, Fiona felt scared thinking that demons were targeting beginners. Up until now, there was something following them. For Gray, he won't believe that demons were the ones who targeted the beginner champions. Fiona then asked him to explain it further, and Gray was about to explain it, but the unknown guy following them was already behind them. This guy was not alone. He had a companion with him, and they both covered Gray and Fiona's mouths so they couldn't scream. Gray used a magic circle, and he already expected this thing to happen. He acts like he passed out, and the guys bring them to an abandoned building used by the bandits to imprison champions, which was far away from the city. They threw them on the ground, and one guy told Gray to act nice and obedient so they won't kill Fiona. This guy then stomped Gray's face and asked Gray if he got what he just said. He then laughed, and Fiona was worried for Gray. She then asked him if he was fine, and Gray then also asked her if she was okay. Fiona then said she was fine. A muscular guy who was also with them then called them newcomers and said that Gray and Fiona were pretty unlucky to end up in this garbage dump. This guy was familiar to Gray, and he uttered this guy's name, which was Ezekiel. The guy was shocked and asked Gray if they had met before. Gray was stuttering as he answered no, but he was sure that that guy was Ezekiel Iglesias, a tank who joined their party in his past life. Back then, when they were aiming to kill the evil god, they happened to be surrounded by monsters. Fiona was annoyed since they were almost close to the evil god, but they ended up blocked by the monsters. An ogre was standing right in front of Fiona with a clenched fist and took a blow with a killing intent. But then, someone blocked the ogre's fist. It was Ezekiel. Ezekiel was smiling at Fiona and Gray, telling them that he would handle the monsters, so they must go and do what they needed to do. They don't want to leave Ezekiel alone, but Ezekiel screaming at them, telling them to go. In the end, Ezekiel was stabbed by the monsters, and he was still forcing Gray and Fiona to go. He even said that he have faith in them. He wants them to defeat the evil god and save the world. Gray still doesn't want to leave Ezekiel alone, but Fiona knows that they don't have any chance but to listen to Ezekiel, so she pushes her brother with her. Ezekiel didn't die instantly with those swords stabbed on his body. Monsters are heading toward him together, and he made sure that none of these monsters could follow Gray and Fiona. In the previous life of Gray, Ezekiel was killed just before the showdown with the evil god. Ezekiel is the second comrade he wants to save now to prevent the tragedy. He recalls that they were originally supposed to meet Ezekiel much later, but now it turned out that Ezekiel was captured this time. "Hey man, no matter how much you stare at me, I'm only interested in busty babes, okay?" Ezekiel said since Gray was staring at him for too long. "You look pretty strong, how did they catch you?" Gray asked, and as per Ezekiel, he was hitting it off with this fantastic woman at the bar. He drank a shitton of booze, and when he woke up, he already found himself in a cell. He was smashing the ground while admitting that he really thought that girl was into him but only turned out that she was in cahoots. Fiona feels pity for him, and he then asked if the rumors they heard in the city were all about the champions suddenly disappearing. If they wanted someone to kidnap and sell off, I'm sure the citizens would be much easier. Ezekiel said, "For Gray, there are people out there interested in buying champions, and this den of bandits is supplying those people with the people they want." And as far as he remembered, these people who kidnap and sell champions to such lords are called champion hunters. He knew that some lords wanted to buy champions to bolster their forces. There's a whole demon army drawing near, and humans are worried about fighting each other. Fiona asked, "We sure are irredeemable idiots. But well, I can understand why they'd want champions," Ezekiel said. Gray then added that it was even endorsed by the Salvation Agency, and champion hunters target new and inexperienced champions. But they sell for a lot once they're branded a curse of absolute obedience. His sister Fiona was shocked upon hearing it. Gray had captured on purpose so they could put a stop to the hero hunting. They're connected to the first tragedy. It is because of them that this region lost the people it absolutely needed. Ezekiel was so amazed at Gray since Gray knows a lot about everything. He asked Gray where he got the information, but Gray refused to say it as they needed to hurry and escape. He had blocked the men's sleeping drug with barrier magic and pretended to sleep and grasped the internal layout of the hideout while getting carried. Fiona then said that she could not get the things tied to her body. Ezekiel also agreed since he already tried all he could but was no use. And if he went any further, he knew he would probably break his arms. "It's fine, I'll get them off you," Gray said while activating his evil eye. Just by staring at the lock, it instantly shattered to pieces which shocked both Fiona and Ezekiel. Ezekiel then asked Gray how he made it and Gray answered that he used a telekinesis. He also removed the lock to the other champions with them. He then told everyone that they must now hurry and leave, but two of the people with them remembered that those bandits were strong while they didn't have any weapons to fight. "I saw their armory, so we'll swing by on our way out," Gray replied with a slight smile. He then casts a magic circle in the armory of the bandits and the lock instantly breaks and the door opens. The champions then rushed inside to get weapons. As expected, Fiona gets a sword while Ezekiel gets an axe. The people were now confident to fight fairly against the bandits. After getting weapons, Fiona then told Gray that they must now go, but Gray told her to hold on. He informed everyone that there were several other cells and he wanted to free each and every one of the people in that cells. Ezekiel then held his shoulder and volunteered to come with him. At the same time, in the other cell where there was a lady and a man imprisoned, 3 bandits approached them, ordering them to do something funny. They said that they were on guard duty and they were very bored, so they wanted these 2 captives to start with each other punching them to relieve their stress. Then they saw a champion heading toward them. It was Ezekiel, telling them that they had a nasty hobby. 2 of the bandits then charged at him with killing intent. They hit him with the sword they were holding, but Ezekiel blocked their weapons and shattered it to pieces. He then said that such weak attacks could not harm him. He then charged at the bandits, calling them weak, then attacked them, causing the 2 bandits to fly away. Because of his ability, the remaining bandit runs away in fear while screaming that this champion isn't a newbie. Unfortunately for him, Fiona appeared, and she told the bandit that he could not go anywhere. She then sliced the bandit into half, and after it, Ezekiel then told Fiona that she was pretty good at fighting. Fiona then proudly replied that she had trained a whole lot. They continued to fight more men guarding the cells and later on, freeing the people. They headed outside to leave, and upon seeing a silhouette, Fiona declared that they were now at the exit. But then, when they get out, lots of archers surround them. "How annoying. Merchandise is supposed to sit still, you know," the leader of the bandits said, and it turned out that he had beaten normal citizens. He then ordered the 3 champions to throw their weapons down right now, or else they would turn into pincushions for arrows. Fiona then said that they wouldn't surrender so easily. But then, there were 2 bandits holding 2 children while pointing a dagger at them. They said that if the heroes took a single step, they would kill the kids without hesitation. Fiona was annoyed as she felt pity for the kids. In the end, they dropped their weapons, and the leader of the bandits then declared that the men who escaped from their prison will be beaten half to death while the women will be raped as a punishment. A big bald man then grabbed Fiona while saying that he would take her with him. Fiona told him no, but the big bald man said that her disgusted expression really got him going. All of a sudden, his blood splattered as he was stabbed using an ice spike. He knelt on the ground, wondering what had happened. And as expected, it was because of Gray. Gray used his magic power while telling the bald guy not to dare harm his sister. At the same time, his evil eye was also activated. The two men who held two children were mad at Gray for attacking their comrade. But then, Gray instantly attacked them without mercy, and the same as the bald man, they both were pierced with ice spikes. Gray then asked the bandits what they would do with the hostages. The bandits' leader then ordered his men to kill Gray immediately. All of his archers attacked Gray with arrows. Gray stood still, but Fiona interfered, planning to block the arrows to save his life. But then, to her surprise, Gray casually held her shoulder and activated 1,000 icicles that turned the arrows into ice, and the attack bounced back to the bandits. The bandits were pierced and their leader was dumbfounded. "You're the only one left, what are you gonna do now?" Gray asked, and the bandits' leader then charged at him with a sword and screamed. He tried to attack Gray, but Gray was able to dodge and asked the leader if it was all he got. The bandit tried to attack him for the second time and he still avoided it. Gray then called him a lowly thief, and the bandits' leader felt insulted, so he was full of anger against Gray. Still, his anger cannot do anything. Gray ordered him to check above him, and he then looked up above. There was a huge spike of ice heading toward him and he was struck, causing him to die. The champions were so happy and grateful to Gray for saving them. They said that they're willing to pay him back someday. Gray then told them not to worry and just leave. He handed them a pouch, and when the guy opened it, they saw lots of gold coins. As per Gray, it was the gold that the champion hunters had. He then waved at them and wished that these three could save lots of people in the future. At this time, Gray suddenly kneeled on the ground, holding his chest since he felt pain. Because of it, he realizes that big spells still put a huge strain on his body. Ezekiel immediately approaches him and concludes that he isn't an ordinary mage. Gray was shocked by Ezekiel's conclusion. He then asked him what he was talking about, and he lied that he's a newbie mage who just left the countryside. "I've never even heard of a mage casting spells without chanting before. So how about it? Will you let me join you?" Ezekiel said while extending his hand. Of course, Gray shook hands with him and accepted his offer, wishing that they would get along together. Ezekiel was smiling at him, but deep inside, he was still confused about how Gray knew his name. For him, everything about Gray is weird as hell. After the commotion, they then went back to the main city. While walking, Fiona was stretching her arms while Gray stated that it was a pretty far walk from the bandit hideout to the city. The bandits are the ones who kidnap people, so naturally they should take responsibility and take them where they wish to go, Fiona said, and Ezekiel then stated, "I mean, kinda impossible this time after what Gray did to them." At this moment, Fiona wanted so badly to take a bath and clean herself. She suddenly bumped into someone, and this lady was eating a donut. The donut unfortunately fell, and Fiona was guilty and promised to buy her another one. "Kneel and beg for forgiveness," the lady said angrily, which scared Fiona. This lady is Brenda, and she's together with others who seem to be champions. One of her companions then told her that getting angry over a snack is just embarrassing, despite that she's excited about her first time eating food while walking around. Still, Brenda was irritated. She clears her throat and realizes that it's a noble's duty to show leniency to commoners. She turned her head a little and asked her companion named Katrin if she agreed with her. Katrin was stuttering and answered yes. Brenda crossed her arms and concluded that these three people right in front of them just set out on their journey. "Do you happen to know anything about the missing champions around here? I thought I might just stretch myself and save those pitiful commoner champions," Brenda confidently stated. Fiona then held Gray's arm and said that the missing champions problem was already solved. Brenda was puzzled, and Fiona then informed her that her brother went and beat up all the bandits responsible. She also proudly said that Gray saved all the kidnapped champions. "So the one who has been ignoring me, the only daughter of the Einhorn family all this time, is the one who solved the case?" Brenda asked. Fiona was confused since she didn't have any idea who Einhorn was. As per Brenda, Einhorn is the great family that has been the just rulers of the Karthus region for generations and was also the family extolled as the great swordsmen on the continent. "There's no way a weak commoner man like you could have dealt with those bandits. You must have used some dirty trick or been in league with the bandits all along," she said while pointing her finger at Gray. "My brother doesn't use any dirty methods. I don't care how strong the Einhorn family is. My brother is much stronger when he's serious," Fiona angrily said. To confirm that she's telling the truth, Brenda challenges Gray to have a match and will personally judge whether Gray has the strength to subjugate the kidnappers. She also stated that this match is an opportunity to teach Fiona, whom she thought an ignorant commoner, the meaning of the name Einhorn. "I have no reason to fight you. Let's just say you are the stronger one, Brenda," Gray casually said, which annoyed Brenda for hearing her name coming from a commoner like Gray. Brenda Einhorn. Even in Gray's past life, she somehow considered their party as rivals and constantly picked fights with them. Gray and Brenda never partied up together, but Brenda did help them out on their journey of salvation. She is also supposed to be the third person he needs to save to avoid the tragedy. At this time, he sighed, thinking that he and Brenda might have fated to be on bad terms for eternity. Brenda suddenly struck the ground using her sword while saying that she would be the one to attack first if Gray didn't attack. The ground crumbled to pieces, and because of her strength, the people around her were affected by the blow. She was full of anger. She walked toward Gray with her power being activated. Gray grits his teeth and covered his face with his hand. The area was smoking caused of Brenda's power. Gray recalls that Brenda's family has fallen on hard times, but Brenda's power is a real deal. In order to end this without anyone getting hurt, he needed to use his evil eye. He activates it while Brenda swings her weapon, intending to attack Gray. Gray avoided her attack, but Brenda won't stop. She still charged at Gray while screaming and attacked several times, but Gray dodged. She feels something weird since she cannot hit Gray, and Gray also dodges her sword without breaking a sweat. After swinging her sword for a few minutes, she finally feels tired. Gray used his magic power. He lifted up the green magic circle and attacked it to Brenda. Brenda instantly flew away, but Gray suddenly appeared behind her and supported her so she won't fall. "Are you okay? I don't want to fight you. Can't we get along?" Gray asked. Brenda was shocked upon seeing Gray's hand on her shoulder. She suddenly pushed Gray away, and she was mad to see a commoner touching her. "We're leaving. We don't have the time to play around with commoners," she said, and what Gray did to her was unforgivable for her. She knows that Gray was never serious during their fight, so she concludes that she was not a threat to Gray from the very beginning. She felt being mocked by Gray, so she vowed to get revenge soon. The night came and the three were in a cemetery. Ezekiel asked Gray if it was really fine for him to let a noble lady insult him. Gray then answered that Brenda would surely calm down soon enough. "So, why are we here? Visiting a grave or something?" Ezekiel asked, and Gray was staring into something while he answered that there was something he wanted to borrow for a while. He was in front of someone's grave. He used his magic power, and when it opened, a hidden staircase appeared. Gray then went down while Ezekiel and Fiona just followed him. According to Gray, this is the grave of a champion from 1,000 years ago named Albert. Albert had the armor of Evil's Bane, or simply called Aegis. Ezekiel was shocked once again and asked Gray how he knew about it. He said that there was no way a commoner would have this kind of information. Of course, Gray lied. He said that he only heard it through the grapevine. Gray realized it back at the bandits' hideout that he needed to get Fiona some good armor as soon as possible. Originally, they got in while fulfilling a special order from the Salvation Agency, but Gray has decided to grab it right from the start this time. Inside, the grave of Albert was so huge and cannot be imagined that it was all under a grave. As per Gray, this was the grave's original purpose, and seems that previous champions made the grave above this place to earn some sort of divine protection from the deceased champion. While heading deep down, there was someone following them. Ezekiel turned his head a little and Gray asked him what was wrong. Ezekiel then answered that he sensed something. He concludes that it might be just a rat or a spider, so Gray tells him to ignore it and just hurry up to the bottom. After 2 minutes, they finally reached a door at the bottom. Gray slowly opened it and there was an armor floating in a flame. As per Gray, it was the guardian of this grave that would grant the armor of Evil's Bane to whom it seems worthy. In inexperienced champions, this is the final resting place of those who came before you. Offer the 6 trial proofs from the Salvation Agency. Only then shall they bestow the holy armor onto you. The guardian of the armor stated. "What's a trial proof? We don't have any, right?" Fiona said, and Gray then told her it was fine since they could just take the armor by force. He then attacked the guardian with his magic power and an explosion then happened. As per Gray, they don't have time to play with the guardian, so they will be snatching the armor from it. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you wish to have another part of this recap, please give us at least 2,000 likes. Please don't forget to comment and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Until next time.